1, unfinished business, Civic Center financing. Ms. Hines, and once we have a presentation, we'll entertain a motion.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight we wanted to bring back some follow-up information and request to council on the Civic Center financing. Council has discussed this topic and short-term financing options at previous workshops on August 16th and August 18th. At the last workshop on August 18th, the follow-up information was provided to council on the options we were pursuing, additional bond issue, a bank loan, and interfund type loan or use of reserves. The information provided was the cost of an additional bond issue, the fact that banks, there's not much interest right now in this climate for a bank for them to lend money to the city on a loan. And the follow-up from the interfund loan was on the rules and restrictions regarding interfund loans, especially as they relate to any type of restricted funds like an enterprise fund, a water utility, where you're required to pay it back, and the guidelines on that of the 3 years and the interest rates. With council discussion, it was kind of narrowed down to the fact that council preferred to make at least the short-term financing option for this coming December payment to be internal from a unencumbered, unrestricted source. And what we brought back to you is 2 options for that. One being the Glacier Northwest Settlement Fund, which projected for 2011 has an ending fund balance of just under $624,000, and the Equipment Repair and Replacement Fund, the portion of that has not been paid into by utilities, those charges that were paid from the utilities into that fund would also be considered restricted, but the portion that has been paid from general government sources, the total balance is about $1.4 million. And the need for the December payment is $450,000. So both the Glacier Northwest Settlement Fund and the general purpose portion of the Equipment Repair and Replacement Fund are able to meet that $450,000 need. What we're looking for from council is direction and guidance on which fund would be preferred and would like to be brought forward. It would be a budget adjustment for final fourth quarter budget adjustments, which first reading of those will be at the next meeting on November 22nd.
Councilmember Ehrenreich?
I guess I would propose, just throw it out there. Are you looking for something in the form of a motion or just a general suggestion, or?
Ms. Massey, could you please clarify?
What we were looking for this evening was kind of some direction from the council so that on the November 22nd meeting we could bring back as part of the budget adjustment and have that ready, which form of funding it was going to be for. So that's what this is on the agenda for. However, we did receive a letter late this afternoon from an attorney regarding the glacier mitigation funds, and our city attorney has not yet had a chance to read that entire memo and would like some time to digest that as well. So that kind of throws a additional crimp into the timing of this, because in order to implement this, whatever source of funds we use, we would need to have something on the November 22nd agenda in order to be able to make that December payment. So I guess it would be helpful to know the council's feelings on that, and also allow staff the time to go back and our city attorney to go back and actually look at the memo from the attorney that we just received, and take a look at that in conjunction with the legal analysis that we have already had several city attorneys already take into account. So
I'm assuming that I'm not asking you to read the memo, but it has something to do with encumbrance and the use of the fund. Okay.
that is correct.
Well, I mean, what I was going to suggest is that we take a shallow cut at both, and split the difference and take it from both the settlement fund and the glacier fund, and as well as the ER and R. And it's just to me it's simply you just need direction on where to take it, because if we the truth of the matter is, if we took it all from one fund and then decided we didn't like that, it's something we could adjust 2 months later. So it almost doesn't really matter much, because we can fix, if we find out later we did something wrong, we can fix it fairly easily. So, I mean, I had originally thought we would just start with half from both of those funds, but it probably doesn't make any difference.
And that is correct, Councilmember Ehrenreich. We can go back and in a future budget adjustment, rectify that if we do indeed find out that this attorney's opinion prevails over that of our last 3 city attorneys' opinions. So.
Councilmember Coffey?
Yes. Ms. Hines, can you, the $1,419,524, is that the total amount of the ER&R, or that's the amount that's unencumbered?
That's the total amount.
That's the total amount. What is the amount in there that would be available for us to draw from?
It does take some doing to go back and kind of research what's been paid over the past year, so I'm still working on that. My feeling is that it would be at least 50%, if not 60% of that total fund. Probably at least 60%, but I'm still trying to work back and pull what's been paid into over the years. So.
Okay. Is that fund still funded more than 100%, or is it at 100%, or what?
Not over 100%. Probably starting to reduce from the 100%, as we didn't make any contributions for the general government portion in 2010, and we only made 25% contributions in 2011 for those. The water and stormwater utilities made their full contributions as being enterprise funds. So it was fully funded. I'm not sure if it was ever over fully funded. Ms. Masco could address that. I believe it was fully funded. And so those assets that needed contributions in 2010 and 11 would be on the shorter side.
It's a moving target in a lot of ways, because we were depreciating assets and collecting reserves on assets, which we probably will never, replace with something similar in the future. So there's also other things that we had found. So we went back and did a pretty in-depth analysis, I believe in 2006, which is when the council made some pretty large contributions. And so at that point we felt it was fully funded. There's still some things on there though that we've determined that probably shouldn't be funded out of that. They're truly not capital assets. And there's other things that are large pieces of equipment that we have collected or fully depreciated, that again, because of just the changes and the way that we do business, and or newer types of equipment that we can utilize, we probably won't use those reserves. So I think we're still sitting in a really good position. Are we going to jeopardize our ability if we take this from the ER&R now? Are we going to jeopardize our ability to replace our assets anytime in the foreseeable future? No, I think we're still comfortably funded that we can continue down the path.
And on that was the reason why there weren't any contributions for the general fund for 2010 and only 25% for 2011. So there was money there that, the way I'm thinking, it was more than 100%.
Well, absolutely, and the interest that we were collecting on that when times were good and interest rates were high, I mean, we were getting a pretty good amount of money just having it sit there. So, obviously now we're seeing, 1% interest rate, so it's certainly not as lucrative as it was before, but just a variety of factors, we had a very comfortable balance.
Okay. With that being said, I would like to err on the side of caution and take the $450,000 from the ER&R fund. That's my opinion.
Thank you. I know that councils in the past have looked with what I think of as a covetous eye towards the Glacier Settlement Fund as a place to get their money for whatever they wanted to do. And I've always been against doing that because in my mind, it's been a very convenient reserve and a cushion against some things that could happen, unintended consequences. Maybe this crisis has been coming for a long time with regard to the COPs, the money that has to be paid now, it's been coming for a long time, and it's been slow. It's been like a slow motion train wreck. We just knew it was going to happen, but it's been put off and put off and put off, and the can's been kicked down the road with regard to this particular issue. And I am very much against using the Glacier Settlement Fund, and the reason for that is because as it states right in what we're looking at here, there's no restriction and would not be required to be paid back. And it's like giving people a free rein to spend money with no need to ever replace it. And so that is somewhat troubling. Well, more than somewhat, it's very troubling to me, and I'm very saddened if we go that route. And John, a few months ago, first time we met on this, John Ehrenreich talked about the fact that the choice of funding might have gone better. There might have been a better choice of funding rather than funding it through the COPs. And I agree that it would have been better to fund that with a general obligation bond. And that wasn't done. And I think that was done funded this way out of fear, because the council at that time, I think, feared going to the public and saying, will you fund this? And being turned down. So we are stuck with the COPs, which I find out recently, if we pay them off, there's a penalty clause, which probably should never have been included in that. Now, Ms. Masco did inform me when I questioned her about this, that there were some ways we could pay that off early if there was a general obligation bond put before the public, because in effect, I think getting money for December's payment and then getting money for June or July's payment, whichever it is in effect just kicking that can down the road some more, and there needs to be a solid funding for that particular obligation that we have that will run for the next, 15 to 18 years, something like that. It's like $18 million. And so, as unpopular as a general obligation bond might be, I think it's possible to present that to the public in such a way that they would see that what was going on here was that the city was being deprived, for want of a better word, of doing all the things it needs to do, all the things it can do, because of the long shadow of this particular obligation. It's not something that's going to go away. And, as much as I have lobbied against taxes, and John was talking earlier about the $1.52 property tax, and it being only about half of other cities, I find myself thinking that I would rather pay the $1.52 property tax on a regular basis and fund this particular thing out of a general obligation bond rather than continuing to take money out of other funds. I'm in favor of the ER&R fund, as Ms. Coffey pointed out. It seems like the right way to go at this point, but like I said, this has been a train wreck that's been happening in slow motion from my standpoint for the last 3 years, and it's time to do something about this other than just put it off. Thank you.
Additional council comment on this item? Councilmember Graham.
Yeah, I just echo both those comments. I think that taking from the ENR&R fund, because we do have a short-term need, that does seem like the prudent approach. But looking long-term, we can only borrow from one account and from the other until we're going to run out of resources, and eventually we're going to come to the exact conclusion that Councilmember Hill has just very well articulated. And I think that to have that community conversation now and start looking at all available options now is the prudent and responsible thing for us to do in the short term and for the long-term future of the community. So I agree with you, Councilmember Hills.
Councilmember Wilcox?
Just a recommendation. It doesn't need to be an official
I would
motion.
recommend. Okay, I'd recommend the ER&R. Yeah, definitely.
Councilmember
I too would suggest that we withdraw the funds from the general government portion of the R&R fund. I also would like to support what council member down there at the end, Mr. Hills, indicated as far as a general obligation bond going out to the public. If that does go out to the public, it would have to go out and be in effect in year 2013, I believe. So we're going to have to, out of necessity, come back to a source of funding to meet our mortgage obligations for 2012. The people need to have this council demonstrate a willingness and a desire and the determination in 2012 to cut expenses. People are not going to support, in my opinion, a request for general obligation funds in 2013 unless they see that the council is demonstrating fiscal responsibility and looking at that 2012 budget as close as possible, trim it as slim as we possibly can. And we then would show to the people, hey, we're doing everything we can and we are going to come to you for your support in order to put the financial house in order to make the mortgage payments from 2013 on. If we do that, together with going out and giving a thorough explanation and an approach why we need the bond passage, I think it will go. If we sit back here and do not do critical analysis of our spending and our budgeting for 2012, I have some doubts. Let's go ahead and pay our bills now. Let's start thinking about how we're going to get by for 2012 and try to sell a permanent solution after 2013. Thank you.
Staff, that was resoundingly clear. Do you have any other questions for directions?
No, thank you.
Okay.